We have with us Nicholas Koutelis, who is a principal research scientist for Telefonica, Khalid Sharif Alavadi, that is senior VP for Core and IoT Digital Services in EN International, and Neil McRae, ex-group chief architect for BT. So before we start, why don't you just give us a very, very brief introduction about yourselves, at least the ones that you just joined?
Should I go first, or?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so hi from me. I'm Nicholas Koutelis, principal researcher in Telefonica Research and also co-director of the lab. The lab is based in Barcelona, Spain. So if you are ever around, stop by. And we are a team of at the moment 20 plus PhDs working on different topics around systems, networks, machine learning, security and privacy, human-computer interaction, and everything in between. And at the moment, we're applying AI pretty much to all these types of research directions. Thanks.
Yeah, hi, this is Khalid Sharif. This is Khalid Sharif from EANT. I'm a senior vice president of Core and IoT and Digital Service in EANT International. I have experience of 28 years working with Etisalat, mix of operations, planning, development, and technologies. I was part of Etisalat Digital, which has been announced 8 years back, which has been focused on digital services such as an IoT, cloud, and security. And recently, I have been moved to the EAN International to share my experience with other opcos. As you know, Salat EAN, we have many companies outside the UAE territory, so I'm sharing the same experience to deploy the same functionality of sharing the digitality of EAN to other opcos.
Thank you. Now, we know Neil from the previous session, so just to open this up, AI has been captivating the imaginations in service providers from inception, basically, and everybody was thinking how can they leverage the power it offers. At first, to be honest, I think the main scope for it was to improve network operations and improve efficiencies there, either in the terms of predictive maintenance and finding network anomalies, or automating the network workflows and the whole network deployment life cycle. But especially in the recent years, with sustainability emerging as a pillar of most telco strategies, and with the energy prices soaring, we see a lot of interest in terms of how we can apply AI to produce to reduce energy costs and provide efficiencies in the power consumption space. So an open question to you all, basically, what can AI do in this space? What does it bring to the table?
Maybe if I pick up first, Christopher,
Sure.
I think we've been looking at AI in a couple of different ways historically. One was actually what's out there and what is actually consuming power. I think if you walk around, a lot of telecommunications companies, we've all been around for a very long time, and often we find equipment that's powered up that isn't actually of value, or that we've got 5 or 6 things powered up where it could be just one. And I think what we've seen AI do is actually go out, analyze the network and analyze the infrastructure that's there, and actually then take the usage. We've got smart meters that are driving usually half-hourly samples of power. We've also got smart power supplies and that give all, a huge amount of analytical data. I think what we've struggled with is connecting the dots. And I think this is where AI is really helping, actually, hey, did you know that at 5 p.m., the mobile network gets super busy because everyone's trying to connect, at a train station or at an airport. And it allows us to think, one, differently about how we build the infrastructure in the future, but also recognize where we have infrastructure that isn't actually, using energy in a way that isn't actually valuable. I think the second part, so you can connect those dots and make sure that, if there's a gap, if you're suddenly using loads of power and you can't actually realize where you're using it, then you can investigate that and realize actually, in a previous organization many years ago, we found a customer that we put co-location in, but we forgot to bill them for power. And the simple things like that, right? And it's less about sustainability in some ways, but more about revenue management. But those AI is helping us in that space. And then I think the second area is AI is increasingly allowing us to understand user behavior in a much more refined way. And there's that use case, and a lot of people think this use case is obvious, but it's actually a difficult one, and it's whereby at nighttime or at non-peak periods where you start to power down things in the network. It sounds so easy and so obvious, right? But all it takes is for a coach full of people going, traveling overnight to kind of misunderstand what's happening in the network, or a late flight, or some sort of an emergency with the blue light services to kind of undermine your whole planning. And again, what AI is allowing us to do is see that user behavior from what's live on the network to what demands we see on the network, and then actually being able to wake up or power up devices and vice versa. And I think, look, we're at the early days of that process, but there's massive opportunity there. And then I think the final thing is those services where, and these are kind of linked to number 1 and 2, but those services where customers are paying at one price and actually it's costing us much more to run. And that doesn't just apply to telco infrastructure, it applies to all the systems that support that infrastructure, management systems, billing systems, provisioning systems. And again, AI is allowing us to understand better what the true cost of things are, either in value or in actually saying, hey, customer, we know that you've got an ESG agenda, you want to be sustainable, we can move you to this product. It's half the amount of power, half the amount of CO2 output, and which is good for you and good for us.
Yeah, actually, you are right, Neil. I mean, the challenges we are facing here is of course, as you know, the telecom. We are expanding more, we are adding more of networks, and that's also need more power. So the AI is mandated to optimize these things, and we have to make those sites more smart. The operation should be smart. The network itself has to be smart, and this all will be done by adding the AI. Here in EAN, we are focusing in our network. Plus, we are also adding sustainability as service to the customer. So we are offering also not just our network, we are also offering for the customer, a normal customer side, a sustainability as service, connecting all of these buildings and equipments via, as you said, via the dot, which is the Internet of Things. And we adding the flavor of AI for the predictive and maintenance of those things. So we have 2 challenges here. One is our network, which we are already planned to make the site smart, the operation smart, the number of visits, even the power consumption itself, the tools of power consumption, as we have a diesel, so we are just evolving to have a hybrid solutions. We are also using the solar, and this all has been done because of you are using the power of AI. All of these data and information has been collected. Based on that, we are modernizing the site. We are shutting down some sites that, as you said, some cells which is not being heavily used, some are there heavily used, so we need to optimize those. All of this information has been collected by our networks here, and using the power of AI, And at the end, we are modernizing and we are adding values to reach the target of the CO, clear CO2, and to reduce the carbon emissions.
I guess I'll mention also a couple of things that we're doing from Telefónica's point of view. There is a few places where we use AI to first of all optimize things and make them more efficient, as well as improve the customer experience. So I guess the first example is what we call Aura or Aura. This is basically a AI-powered digital assistant that Telefónica released, I think, around 5 years ago. And this assistant is helping customers to interact with Telefónica services, allows you to do some sort of interaction, receive recommendations, maybe automate some calls, answer calls, or make calls, interact with billing, have some sort of customer support, and therefore there are some opportunities also from the network operator's point of view to reduce call center operations. Then we have some other, let's say, efforts that we're doing to use sustainable energy, smart energy, basically trying to reduce the energy consumption that we have in the various facilities, data centers that we have. Furthermore, there is some effort from the point of view of how do you orchestrate the network and performing better what we call anomaly detection, so that if there is some sort of downtime, you redirect traffic to other antennas or other areas in the network that can support this traffic, but also do this in an automated way as fast as possible. Yeah, so there are these also some other, let's say, a little bit more exploratory projects we were doing in the last maybe few years. We had the so-called Internet para Todos. This is an interesting, more experimental project that we have in Latin America, where we try to connect the unconnected. 100 million people are basically in areas where they do not have steady connectivity, and therefore they rely on very type of infrastructure that is very flimsy. Let's say it's powered by networks that are not stable, are not easy to reach. So there is this let's say fragility in the system, and we've been testing AI type of methods to first of all detect downtime and detect basically predict when such downtime may happen. Surprisingly, by monitoring various types of, let's say, vitals of the system, we can predict with very good accuracy when these things may happen, these downtimes, and therefore we can redeploy infrastructure. And this has increased a lot the quality of service that these type of users are receiving. Therefore, I want to give the message that you have on the one hand, let's say the developed world, where we have stable energy and everything is there as with respect to opportunities to optimize things, and then you have the other side, which is the, let's say, developing world, that it's not only in Latin America, right? You can have in Asia, in Africa. So there's a lot of opportunity there to also optimize how operations are done using AI. I'll put a full stop here. Thanks.
Thank you. So from what we see around and knowing that the radio access network takes the lion's share of power consumption, we see most initiatives being concentrated on how we can optimize the run, either by choosing the channels that are used in a smart way, or shutting down the run elements that are not in constant use, using some predictive algorithms. But what do you see are the most favorable parts of the network to apply AI in terms of energy saving? Is it just the run, or is it across the board?
Yeah, I think it's across the board, in my view. I mean, you know, here in the UK, we have a lot of cable, DOCSIS, and a lot of DSL still in the network. And they use huge amounts of power because we're typically providing line power as well. And quite often, you know, again, at night, the network's not being used as much. And I think we can, you know, we've looked at, we have, you know, in my previous organization, we looked at kind of how might you train down some of the speed to use less power. I don't think it's anything that's been deployed yet, but there was, you know, a big chunk of opportunity there, for sure. And then also, you know, leveraging, you know, with the advent of solar power, how do you stack your workloads in a way that means that you're not having to grab back off the regular grid? And again, AI, you know, I've seen some trials in AI where it's helping you leverage the best power delivery with the workload that you want to use, but also flagging, you know, we found a kind of couple of workloads that were all running at the same time that actually if we ran them more concurrently or serially, it would use significantly less energy. So you know, I think what AI is doing is presenting us with a better view of that power utilization, and then actually you know, different types of AI then looking at it saying, well, we're looking at all your IT work jobs or your billing work jobs, and actually if you relay them out, you can get a much more improved set of utilizations. And then I think finally, even in a core network, there's certain levels of redundancy built into the core network, and as we move to kind of cloud native, as well as, you know, turning off the radios or modems that we don't need, we can actually shut down a load of server capacity, which allows us to shut down, you know, cooling as well, and use, you know, different amount of energy throughout the day. So, you know, I look at it holistically. If we're using power, then there's always going to be an opportunity to improve it, but also, and then finally, actually in the power infrastructure itself, actually also looking at, you know, are the rectifiers that we're using, are the generators that we're using, are the batteries that we're using giving the performance that's required? Have we built them in the right scale and the right way to give the best performance? So, and again, that's another thing that, you know, we've looked at AI, and I think, you know, generically, Chris, is where there's complexity, you know, I kind of think, right, okay, where can AI help us navigate through this complexity? And in this space, there's just so much complexity across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Christopher, also as per the GSMA report, latest report for target of 2030, they put under Telco a target of clear CO2 reduction for the mobile, like 45%. The fixed, they put 62%, because as that Neil said, that fixed network also they have money, also power consumption, and the data center 53%. So the more load or effort will be done in the fixed network, because there's many of things scattered among the fixed network. So it's a big challenge. It's not only for the mobile side, it's for the complete telco network.
But in terms of, you know, all this sounds promising, but obviously there are many challenges in terms of how we apply internally these kind of things, either organizational or any knowledge gaps. What do you see there?
Of course, as a challenge, as you said, there should be, first of all, there are things which is obvious that it's need a modernization. This is something that each telco or opcos needs to focus on that, because there are things which is obvious need to be upgraded or need to be modernized, like what we are doing here. This is the one of the challenge. Second challenge is about the strategic. Each company or telco, they should have a strategic vision of using the power of AI to reduce the power and reduce the energy. It has to be a company vision. Otherwise, no one will be focusing or it's a day-to-day routine job. Everyone will continue doing that. But if it's in focus, if it's been driven by the top company or top management of the company as a strategic decision, I think that will add a great value to have this target achievable.
Do you see, I guess this is a good question for Nicolas, since he works in a more dedicated AI practice. Do you see any miscommunication or gaps of communication between teams that are implementing these things and teams that are on the ground operating the network?
Well, maybe this can be a very long answer, but I'll try to make it short. So it's not a matter of miscommunication, it's more a matter of understanding the needs. So we have to think that, you know, if I step back, and maybe it's relevant to your previous question as well, the place where you could apply AI in, for example, a telco operator, it's not just the networks, right? There is a lot of different places where you can apply AI. Now, what that means is you may be assuming that the methods, the models, are basically, you know, just a set of models, but then how they are being applied is a totally different question. You need some expertise that requires the correct data collection and the procurement of the data to make sure that they are useful. And then you need some sort of, I don't know, AI specialist, data scientist, machine learning expert, you call it. I stopped naming this role a long time ago, to do the processing and come up with a useful model. And then you need a way to, let's say, use or enforce this kind of model outputs and inferences into the original question in the first place. So if you're trying to optimize, for example, energy consumption in a data center of a telco operator, you need to figure out what you're actually exactly trying to optimize. Then you need to collect the correct data, do the processing, have some actionable items, and then go back and implement them, right? So you need the set of engineers, let's say, that would be collecting the correct data and make sure that when they get back the decisions, let's say, or inferences of the AI model, they act on them, right? And these should not be through humans, right? The decisions of the AI should be more automatically applicable. I'm not saying that you should take the human out of the loop, because we have seen over and over how AI models, at least until now, have been messing up in various occasions. So unfortunately, we still need to be in the loop. Down the road, I am foreseeing that this may not be the case. Maybe we may not need that. So we have, going back to your question, it's not a matter of, let's say, miscommunication. It's a matter of perhaps having from the top down some sort of policies, some sort of a strategy that, hey, we're going to go digital, we're going to invest in AI solutions. So whoever doesn't know AI is not going to get fired, let's say. They need to become a bit better aware of what AI language is. How do you interact with an engineer? How do you interact, for example, with a data scientist? And how do you try to automate some things? So there is, I think, these necessary steps to be done. Yeah.
It's probably, as Khalid said, the whole organization owning the strategy, clear strategy around it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, where data is involved, and especially customer data, there are also concerns either about data sovereignty, either about security. How easy it is to overcome this, and especially how do you see operators working with partners in terms of being able to manage those data volumes and at the same time address issues that they have, either of not giving them away, or to be more cautious about data privacy issues? Are there concerns there?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Caruso, this is one of the when I mentioned initially about that, we start to offer the service to the customer. So this is one of the big challenges. The first question customer asks us is my data secure? This is the first question, because as you know, most of the services now are landed in the native cloud. It's not anymore in the customer prem. So he's concerned about his data. And those challenges, and we have to show the customer that how certified security certifications we have in our networks. So there are also some entities that they are even come and visit our solutions, and they give a certification that this solution is completely secured by the government entity. And we show the customer that this is the certificate we got from the top of the security, that it make himself very comfortable with his data. This is very important thing. The second thing is about the company or organization security structures, because we here in EAN, we always make sure that any service or any platforms go live, it has to be completely signed and certified and checklist by security. Otherwise, it will not be secured and it will not be go live. So this is also internal. So to make the data privacy and make the customers very comfortable, there's two things. One is the external, which is, as I said, the top of the government or whatever entity that's available in that country. We certify, and there's internal certifications by our security team that those platforms, that solutions are completely certificated. And of course, as part of that, we also offer the customer some security solutions on top of that, whatever services of AI or data privacy, we provide a complete security solution to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Chris, I think it's a crucial question, but I think a couple of things, here in Europe with GDPR, we've done a lot of great work across Europe in thinking about this, probably more than anywhere else in the world. I think certainly here in the UK with our finance background, etc., we've done a really great job of implementing it. And actually, it's now a tradable skill. We have companies from California asking us how we built it and helping them build their privacy solutions. But again, I think it's another area where AI can help us by saying, you're exporting this, but I don't need this data. It can actually say, what it needs to complete this, or what it's getting it doesn't need. It's one area that I've seen a lot of work in. Again, because of the complexity of it, AI is really well suited to this. So I think it's something that our industry is recognized for security and privacy. I think our customers trust us. I think we need to keep doing, the great work that we do in this space, working across both the industry and with government and security services to ensure that we're secure, as well as keeping the data private. But I think this is something that we've got a lot of expertise in, and that we're trusted for. And we need to make sure that we don't stand still, and we keep building and investing in the platforms that are going to maintain that. Because I actually think, you know, privacy is a uphill climb that's just every day is going to get harder and harder and harder. But I think it's an area where with certain customers in the consumer space in particular, it can be a differentiator for you. And we have customers coming to us because they don't want to work with other companies that haven't got this right. So there are big challenges there, but I think it's table stakes. I think you've got to overcome those challenges, and I think none of them are unsolvable. It's about understanding what data you've got, understanding what permission you've got to use that data, building tooling around that, and then as you build capabilities, and it's not just about privacy, because you've then also got to ensure that you're not building bias or other things into the AI that isn't going to give you the right answer. And often that bias can come from the data that you feed it. And if you think about customers, quite often the person paying our bills in telco aren't the people who use the service. In fact, especially in the consumer side. So I think that's something of great value that we can differentiate on, but it's something that, we can't take our eye off the ball. But is there anything that's, apart from the complexity of it, which, I think is, as I say, is something we've got to live with, is there anything that I don't think that we can't solve? No. And certainly the environment, if you get it wrong, not only do you get punished by the regulator in your organization, but actually customers vote with their feet very quickly if you get this wrong. So I think it's something that has got a huge amount of focus in service providers, and it's something that we've got a good track record of doing. And look, the earliest days of privacy was, I don't want to be listed in the telephone book. So we've been having to do some element of privacy for a long time.
Nicholas, you want
Yeah,
to add something?
I've been involved in privacy and security with this AI and web for quite a few years now, and my experience says that there is a lot of tools at this point that we can use, and I'm not talking about actual software. I'm talking about techniques that the R&D, let's say, world is coming up with, going from federated learning to multi-party computation to even homomorphic encryption. There are these kind of tools, and further there is a lot of other techniques that we can use to make what we say privacy by design possible. So I agree with the previous speakers that we have had, let's say, to overcome quite a hill of privacy either violations or privacy issues that the previous era, even before GDPR, has kind of handed down to us. But at this point, we do have a lot of tools in place and at hand. And for example, Telefonica Research is doing a lot of work on this. How do we build privacy by design networks? How do we make a win-win situation? Because you asked about the data sovereignty and ownership, and first of all, we need to identify who is the data producer, and then if that is the user, how do we protect the privacy of the user? If the producer is the operator, because it's a systems type of data, then perhaps this kind of data are shareable. We have recently had this new legislation that may go through from the EU Parliament on the Open Data Act. So how do you allow companies to collaborate? So you have the private data and you also have the non-private data. And a lot of these efforts are to, let's say, facilitate companies such as the telco operators to make sure that they are not stifled by the need for privacy and the need for security of the user's data. There's always opportunities, but you have to use the right technologies to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think we're supposed to leave some time out for a Q&A, but unless I'm missing something, I don't see anything. So, probably the best idea is to open it up to you three and let you share any final thoughts on the matter. So, Neil, if you want to start.
Yeah, look, I think a great discussion, and I think a lot of alignment. In my mind, I think is I think if you haven't got people focused on this, and I think this is something that Nicholas was trying to highlight. You need to kind of make sure you've got resources and effort focused in this area, and to some extent it might feel a bit open-ended, but companies who aren't, we just if you just look at the generative AI craziness that's going on right now, and you can see the momentum that's got. There's a whole lot of different AI and challenges, but if you haven't got teams working on this, both in this energy and sustainability space, but actually across your whole organization, then I think you're going to find yourself one day waking up, in trouble. My former organization, we started working on this very early because we saw that the network was becoming more and more complex, and to the point where humans themselves can't manage it. So in my mind, becoming more expertise and having more expertise in AI by leveraging the expertise that you've got in telco, and bringing those two things together, I think you'll find very quickly that you're getting twice as much out of your employees as you once were, and a lot more valuable kind of solutions and visibility of things that you just didn't really understand before. And I really encourage folks to be looking at AI across the sustainability and energy part of your infrastructure, but generally across the board.
Thank you. Khalid?
Yeah, for me, I think the AI, as I said, this is now the future of all the services. I do recommend or suggest that AI has to be blended with the service provider itself. So we should start focusing on providing such service and solution blended with AI. It's not like I will implement things and I will wait to implement AI after 1 year or 2 years. No. And this is stage which the challenges we have, and as we said, the requirements and the target that we need to achieve. I think AI has to be, from now, it has to be blended with all type of the services. This is what I do recommend.
Thank you. And Nicholas, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with the others. So we shouldn't be scared of AI. I'm pretty sure Skynet is quite far away as a possible, let's say, dystopian future. We should definitely embrace the power that AI is giving us to make things more efficient and eventually better. Also, the complexity of things. We moved from human operators switching cables and stuff like that to something totally different, and this scale of things forces us to use this type of more automated tools. So we should not only embrace them, but as Khalid said, try to integrate it into the services, make sure that it is also fair. As Neil mentioned, we need to have this. There are some principles actually from EU, for example, like ethical and responsible use of AI. There is things that we mentioned earlier about the privacy and what type of data ownership and sovereignty you have. So there are there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of, let's say, even regulations to try to guide operators and developers around. We just need to start making this happen and not worry that basically not touch AI because of the possible Pandora box that is coming with it. If we use it in a proper way and we try to structure the way that is being integrated into the services, I think it is going to be a very powerful tool.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great discussion.